Welcome to Salon Talks. I'm Mary Elizabeth Williams, and this is Dianna Agron. She is an actor, a singer, a dancer, and an advocate. You know her from her iconic role as Quinn on Glee, and more recently in movies like As They Made Us and Shiva Baby, which I loved so much. Her new movie, co-starring Thomas Hayden Church, is called Acidman. Hi, how are you, Dianna?
So good. How are you?
I am great. I loved this movie. I was so moved by it. And because I'm such a fan of the director's other films, this is one of the few movies where I did not look at the trailer. I did not read a description of it. I just went in blind and it really knocked me out. For those who don't know what to expect, how would you describe this movie and this story?
Yeah, my character Maggie shows up on her dad's doorstep, and it's been 10 years, and she's hoping for this kind of reconnection, which, as somebody, uh, Thomas, who's playing Lloyd, doesn't expect, things aren't as smooth as could be, as one can imagine. So, yeah, it's mostly a two-hander about a father and a daughter trying to find a way to reestablish their relationship, having not known each other really for the last 10 years. And as also expected, both of them are quite different than the last time that they remember each other. So just trying to find a way for both of them to re-understand each other.
You know, in your movie that you also did, As They Made Us, this is another story that is about a father and a daughter, and it's about other issues of communication, of mortality, of physical health, of mental health. These are things that
Yes.
are really personal for you. You've spoken
Yeah.
about your own family. Dianna, talk to me about what you drew on from your own life and your own relationship with your family in this particular
Mm-mm.
story.
Can you imagine I filmed these movies back to back?
No, I
I feel
cannot. Well, I could if you hadn't personal experience, but the fact that
yeah,
this is so intimate for you is very intense.
yeah. The timing was funny as life can be because I remember the beginning of the pandemic slowing down, thinking about worlds that I hadn't and characters that I hadn't explored yet, and thinking that given my long-standing history with my father and his personal health, I thought that that might be something I would be willing to incorporate into my filmic storytelling. And then Alex's film comes my way and Mayim's film comes my way. And it just so happens that we're going to be filming both of those truly back to back. I think I had 5 days or 6 days in between them. So when you ask for something, life can give it to you, and then you should be ready. And I was so uh, happy to take on the challenge, especially with this film. I loved Alex's work. I loved Blue Jay. I loved Paddleton. And I really was so excited to understand what we would be playing with, because we were going to be incorporating so much improvisation. And when he brought the script to me, he had tailored this character, Maggie. Originally, it was a father-son piece, and that's how he had been approaching it for quite some time. And at the point of taking it to me, he had switched. And so we discussed what her motivations were. There's a reveal in the movie that we'd kind of designed together because it just felt right that that might be a motivator to encourage her to up this process of trying to establish a reconnection to her father. And we just worked it. And then we loved the idea of Thomas Hayden Church as Lloyd, as the father, and both wrote him kind of these love letters. And he said yes, he really responded. And so the three of us spent months talking to each other on the phone and preparing for this opportunity, because once we got to Oregon, we really hit the ground running. I think we shot in 17 days. So,
And this does
yeah.
come from a personal place, from the time you were 15 in your own
Mm,
family with your own
yeah.
dad's health.
Yes. Yeah. My father, unfortunately, has been sick, and I've known many different versions of him because as his sickness has progressed. So I very much can relate to showing up on a doorstep and not being completely familiar with the person that's in front of me. And sometimes that shift can happen in months, and sometimes it can happen in years. And in this case with Maggie and Lloyd, it's because they haven't seen each other in 10 years. And so those were seeds that I pulled into this project. But Maggie and Lloyd's disconnection is so different than anything I've ever experienced in my own life. And that was really, really fun to build with both Alex and Thomas.
And it does really build. I really, I loved this performance of yours so much, Dianna, because you are so restrained, and in a different actor's hands, I could see how it would be a much showier performance. And you are thinking, you are pausing, you are reacting, and it really shows in the dynamic between the two of you. You're also a person who comes from the world of ensembles. This, as you said, it is a two-hander. How did you develop this quiet, often unspoken intimacy between the two of you?
It was scene by scene. We kind of, with Alex's direction and guidance, it was a balancing act of who has more of the upper hand in this moment, who is being more vulnerable, who is, how are each character reacting scene to scene, and how does that move their story forward? And I think with her, there were moments where I felt that she was her age, which was my age. And there were moments where she just felt like a little girl. She felt like an 8-year-old version of herself, just wanting so badly to have that embrace or hear the things she's been waiting to hear. And I think likewise for Lloyd, I think that when two people are at odds, I think ultimately both of them are wishing and wanting. There's a list of things that could activate them. And it's a delicate situation because ultimately you can only control what you have to share and offer somebody. You can't control the other person. So that was very fun to explore those moments and those scenes. And also we really built in, Lloyd never really wanted her to touch him. There wasn't a physical comfort between the two. And that was something so interesting because I think oftentimes people can use that as a tool to bring somebody in. But there's quite a bit of space between us for a large portion of the opening bit of the film. And slowly over time, you see us getting closer and closer together. And there's moments where one of us leans in, but then it's uncomfortable and you lean out. And so just all of those things, it was such a interesting dynamic with Thomas and with Alex. And I loved every day of filming. Every day had its own new surprises and challenges. And that's what happens when you build a movie where you're shooting so fast and you have very limited time.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Yeah, and exploring that dynamic of the ways in which parents and children, when they are adults, are still just trying to figure each other out and trying to meet each other as fellow adults is such an interesting thing to be exploring. You came off of the biggest television show in the world at a certain point. I mean, it was the biggest, and it wasn't just a television show. It was tours, it was music, it was everything, the biggest phenomenon in television. To now, I saw you on my MBLX podcast talking about how you are really drawn to now these very small independent movies. You really are, you've found a groove in this world. What is it about that kind of milieu that speaks to you right now at this point in your life, Dianna?
It was something that allowed for many different characters, between Maggie Betts's Novitiate or Emma Seligman's Shiva Baby, obviously Mayim's movie, As They Made Us, Alex's Acidman. There was opportunity that the doors were open in those capacities, and they were worlds I wanted to play in. And then last year, it returned to TV for the first time, and there's a miniseries that's going to be coming out on Netflix. And that was such an interesting world because that almost felt like indie filmmaking again in a way, because it's really about surrounding yourself with people who are willing to take chances, and I think that happens a lot on indie films because the resources are more limited, but also what you can discover it can be really beautiful and not something that was found on the page. And I don't know, it just, it's how it ended up being. And then, yeah, this return to TV, I was like, this is so fun to explore characters for a greater length of time. We have 6 episodes to understand where this person started, where they're going, flashbacks. That's such a big world. So that was fun as well. I think project to project, I just have to connect with the people being in, the people involved and the character. And I just want to keep it moving. I don't want to feel as if I'm sitting in one character too often. It has to feel fresh.
But in an industry where it feels like everybody is chasing that next superhero franchise, it is a unique career strategy. And especially
Right.
for a woman where the windows, I mean, we'll talk about your next film as well, where the opportunities, you never always know where they're coming from next to make that kind of conscious choice. Have you had pushback about, have you had people say, like, you need to get yourself in a superhero suit now, Dianna?
Nobody has said that. Nobody has said that. They don't want me. That universe does not want me yet. So no, I feel very lucky to work with people who really understand the choices that I make, and who help nurture those worlds. And I also just think the only thing I was certain of when I moved to Los Angeles was that I wanted to find a musical. That was it. I grew up on musicals. That was the goal. The goal happened wildly because so many people had kind of teased me and said, then why didn't you move to New York and all of these things. And then past Glee, it's just all a delightful surprise, and it all feels very authentic to me. And I just feel so grateful to work with incredible filmmakers who are my friends. And there's just this network of people around me that I admire and appreciate. And I am constantly kind of surprised by what ends up coming. And this year has been it's been a little bit of a slower, I guess we're still only in March, but it's been a little bit of a slower start, which again has allowed me to kind of dream and think about creation. And so what's coming, and kind of bring some of that energy in and start putting some of that into motion as far as seeding things. But yeah, it's interesting. When I was working opposite some of the young people in this new show, they were asking me a lot of questions that was causing a lot of reflection because they were completely new to it. And some of them were like, "You've been doing this for how long? You're how old?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're 13. That's so cool." Watching it from their eyes, their sense of discovery. And I still have that. I get on set and I want to be there every moment. I want to watch it all unfold. I don't want to be in another room. I don't want to be in another, like a trailer. I want to be watching every piece of it made, because that's the joy.
So when you're talking to these 13-year-olds, or if you were talking to your 13-year-old self starting out in this industry, what advice do you give?
It's funny to me because I started after high school. So I'm watching these young people and they're doing something at an age that I didn't even think I could achieve that. That wasn't within it might've been a seed of a dream, but it really wasn't until right as I was about to graduate high school that I thought, you know what, gonna go for it. Let's see. And for them, so much of it was that they wanted to know if I felt that they were free in these moments, or if there was anything that I could help them as far as acting tips, things like that. And, we do little exercises, body movements, vocal kind of strategies, warm-ups, things like that. But they were so free. That was the beauty of the whole thing. They'd gone through a little bit of a training camp in Mexico City, and they just found it really easily. And I think that was an indication that they should have been there doing that. That was their summer breaks. They went right back to school, and they were kind of bummed about it because they had had such a good time. But yeah, I think you should only be doing this if you're having fun and you're feeling free, because then you're up for discovery.
You're in the zone. Well, speaking of things that you love that are fun, you have done residencies at the Carlisle. Your musical career has had you've kind of gone in and out of it. Where are you now in your music?
Uh, it's not something that's being nurtured at this very moment, other than singing in the shower and singing at my piano. I guess this very time last year, we were back in the Carlisle, which was amazing to be in that room again. It had been closed for 2 years. It was the first month it was back. And just to be on that stage again and be with our band was so fun. And just audience members felt very extra joyful to be there because it had been such a long time coming. And now there's always a want and a desire to bring that into filming life and things like that, but nothing to talk about at this very moment.
Okay. I like the sly way you say that. Like, all right, you'll keep
We'll
us
see. Let's talk in a year, and
all
then
right.
maybe.
All right, you'll keep us posted. I want to
Yeah.
also ask you one more thing. I want to ask you about you have another project coming out called Clock, which
Yes.
is also coming out this spring, and it also deals with these issues of the body and relationships and parenthood. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, this film Clock, it was just such a fun and I felt important movie to get behind. Alexis Jackno wrote this movie that talks about a woman who her personal world feels so flawed because she does not feel that she wants to have a child, and her family and her social circles have all made her feel that something's wrong with her. And so she goes on a mission to see if her biological clock is broken, and things go awry. And it's a psychological thriller. It comes out on Hulu in a month. It plays at a festival in New Orleans this weekend. And it was just so interesting to make this film with women, so many female department heads and Alexis, and be filming something an issue that is so personal, whether one wants to have children, how they do it, when they do it. And so many people have opinions about your personal decisions in this way and your body, which is it's so specific to women, and I can't imagine not having. I just it is surprising. The more conversations you have around this matter, I think it's really comforting to understand that there are so many people who also believe that it should be a choice and that you as a person should be allowed to make decisions without the chorus of people around them. But it's really personal. And this film was birthed of a very personal story from Alexis. So it'll be cool to see that film out in the world and see what conversations that film leads to.
And Acidman is also, I think, going to spark a lot of interesting conversations too. It's enigmatic, it's deeply moving, it's intimate and personal, and whatever your relationships with your parents, I think a lot of us can see ourselves in those conversations and in those frustrations of this movie. So thank you so much for making it. It's a beautiful film.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for this conversation.
It's a pleasure,
I
Diana.
really
So I'll
appreciate
come
it.
back in a year when maybe you have more to say
Yeah.
about music.
And then
I'm gonna hold you to that, Diana. Okay. I'm
I
holding you
love
to
it.
it
I
right
love
now. It's
it.
a verbal
March
contract.
27th. Yes, March 27th, 2024.
It's a verbal contract. Dianna Agron, thank you so much for talking to me. The movie, once again, is called Acidman. The next movie is called Clock, and you have a new series coming out on Netflix, which is called
El Elegido.
Okay,
And we
great.
don't have a release date yet, but it's upcoming. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Diana. It's a pleasure.
So thank you. Take care.